Hi everybody. I guess I'm recording. I don't know if I was really ready to start this, but it doesn't really matter. So I don't really have anything planned again. It's just the same sort of thing as usual. So I'm going to move this a little bit so it's better. Okay, so I'll just talk off the top of my head, but I had a few topics that I wanted to talk about. And one of them is just such a broad and deep subject that there's just no way I could really cover it a lot in a video, and my thoughts on it are very, very numerous. And I don't really know how to organize this into like a single sort of a topic because it's a very broad and general topic that has a lot of potential subtopics. So maybe I'll hold off on that, but just getting myself in front of the camera and starting to talking about it. In other words, talking about it. I didn't make a mistake there. Might help a little bit in my eventually getting around and making some videos, or at least one video on the subject. But I'll give you a hint. I guess I'll go ahead and make this and post it. I guess the subject is love, and I don't really have a lot of time on this video. I want to try to keep my videos short, but there's just so much to say about love. And I guess one of the thoughts I had was, some people think that love is intangible, that love doesn't really exist in reality, that it just exists, in the mind. But thoughts and feelings are actually real. And this is the point of view I'll take. This is just sort of an intro to the big, big subject, because there is a lot to say about love in it. Love involves more than one individual, but at this point I'll be talking about one individual. And first of all, though, another thought that has come to me is that everybody has a unique and different experience of love. So for me to talk about, my personal experience of love is not going to be sufficient necessarily to, represent everybody. But what I was going to say about, this theory about the body, right? We know that our bodies are real. They're made out of, flesh, right? I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. They're made out of a lot of things: water, bone, connective tissue, muscle, ligaments, tendons, whatever. Okay, so skin. So we have our bodies, and we have our brains, and our brains are basically part of our bodies. So it's all one continuous body. But our thoughts occur in our brains and in our bodies, I guess, because the brain doesn't really exist independently. Everything's one continuous body, like I said. But what are thoughts? Well, I don't know. Scientifically, I would say thoughts are like electrical impulses and transmissions, going on in the brain and throughout the body, like these electrical currents and stuff. But there's stored information like our memories. We remember things. Our thoughts pertain to our memories, because if we didn't remember anything from one second to another, how could we possibly be thinking? But we're creative. I mean, we manipulate our memories. We create. Our thoughts are creative. And a lot of our thoughts has to do with language, because language was invented. Originally, language was like body language and sign language, and then we developed speech. So we had spoken language, we made sounds, and these developed into words and sentences and so on. And then we had writing, where we took our speech and put it into expressions using characters and so on. So there's been a lot of evolution of language, but basically some of love is expressed in language. Like we talk to ourselves, And why we're in love, this is another thing. I'm really I have a lot of subjects to cover here, but why are we in love? We're in love for, I can think of two reasons right off the top of my head. One is because we want to be in love. So we tell ourselves we want to be in love, but that is insufficient, because to do that just completely independently all by itself in an abstract sense is meaningless. So there's also a natural reason, a natural impulse to be in love. So maybe that is like the most fundamental source of love, is just natural attraction to other people. And I guess here I'll be talking about heterosexual straight love, which is my experience. And I'm just, in a way, this is just a statement about myself, that I'm only going to cover that subject because that's just the way I am. But that's the way I am. So back onto this though. Okay, so love maybe is most fundamentally a natural response. But we can want to be in love too. It's not just that we just have a natural response, but we can increase our love with our thoughts by talking to ourselves. We want to be in love, and maybe that's natural too. Okay, so that's one thing I wanted to say. But back to the whole physiological thing. So is love something that can't be defined, or is it something that can be defined as something more physiological? Because like I said, all of our thoughts are really, scientifically speaking, they're physiological. They're like electrical impulses, and all this is really small, like microscopic. And our brains are the biggest brains of any species that has ever existed on the planet. So we got these, I think, or they're the smartest brains. Because I don't know if killer whales, orcas, if they have bigger brains, but they're not as smart as us anyway. So we've got the smartest brains. Whether or not we have the biggest brains of any species that has ever existed on the planet, we certainly have the smartest brains. So we got our really smart brains in our bodies and our feelings and all this microscopic stuff in there in our big smart brains going on. So we have these thoughts, and we also have feelings, not just thoughts. So love is thoughts, because I guess this is the expression of feelings into thoughts, but we're also creative, like I said, and we can motivate ourselves to be in love and motivate ourselves to do many things with our language and our thoughts. But we also have just straight feelings, like our reaction. Like if I see a beautiful girl, I just react. I feel love. I feel interest. And beauty takes many, many forms too. And to some extent, we decide what we think is beautiful, and that depends on our thoughts and experiences and so on. So there's quite a lot to be said about this subject, and I'm just barely touching on some fundamentals that have occurred to me. So I don't know. I do want to get to the point without making a super long video, and I can just see that I'm going to be having to make a big long series of videos to cover all the subtopics that I really want to talk about. That is already, and I'll probably want to talk about a lot more. So love is like motivated two ways. One is just naturally and by our feelings, but the other is by our thoughts and our own self-motivation that we want to be in love. I mean, that's kind of the way I feel about it. So back onto this, so tying this all in together, like I said, with the natural experience of love, as opposed to saying that it's language and self-motivated or just happens naturally. That's one way. The other thing is this something intangible? Like you say, you can't define love. Love is like something that's, it's like just a word in one way, but it's just not something you can define. Although even if you couldn't define it, you could see the manifestations of love. I mean, love can be seen in the things we say, the things we do, but something more interesting is sometimes our love doesn't show. Like we can feel and be experiencing love, but other people can't always tell. They don't know that. So there's sort of the reverse of that. But love is manifested in what we do sometimes and what we say. But so love, though, I'm arguing that love is like a real thing, just as real as our physiological, our actual bodies are in reality, that love occurs and exists in our bodies. But love isn't just one individual. We need two people to love. And that's one of the very exciting things, because we can control our own love to some extent, but we can't control other people very much or at all. So let's say I see somebody else of the opposite sex who I feel like I love or I'm experiencing love about, but while I can control myself, what I say, my facial expressions, my body movements, my physiological state and everything, to some extent I can control that, but I can't control the other individual. So that very exciting idea is that we're receiving this new input. So some of love is not just like self-caused, it's also a receiving thing. But we actually are responsible in our sense for our reactions. Now, we can't always control our reactions. Like we could be involuntarily in love, but you can also control your love to some extent, I think. But the funny thing is, because we have other priorities in life, we have to do other things. Like sometimes we miss opportunities for romance because we have important professional things that we have to do in our response to society. But what I was going to say is some of our love, I was going to say a lot of things, really, to tell you the truth. Some of our love is in our reaction to others, and some of it is, so that's like the passive response to what we cannot control, which is we cannot control the other individual, at least not very much in most cases. So this other individual, let's say I see somebody of the opposite sex, and this individual is just coming to me, through my sensory input, right? Through my senses, I'm experiencing this individual. But my part of the love is my body, my physiological reaction. And again, we can talk about the thoughts, like our mind and our thinking and our feelings. But that, I argued before, is part of our body. It's like electrical transmissions and impulses, maybe on a microscopic or very small level in the brain and the body and all this. So anyway, what's the point? I'm just trying to get a start on this. I have so much, quite a lot to say on the subject of love And I like the idea that I'm making this like video like straight out. It's like unedited, you know. I really like that because it gives you a more natural and real experience of me. It's not like just some editing job where I'm like, you know, bouncing here and there, you know, from video clip to video clip. You know, no, that's not happening. I'm really giving you this straight out thing, so you get like a natural experience of me. So I've just basically, for this first video on the subject of love, I've talked about some of the basic fundamentals, you know, the basic ideas, and I'll be talking a lot more, hopefully, about the subject of love. So I'm going to cut out right now, and I really hope you all enjoy what I have so far. But so I've given you some things to think about, and I hope you enjoy this video and have a great time.